Alright, in these recordings we are going to be doing Tuesday's task, which is going to be to read pages 17 to 32 and answer text opinion question number 2. If you read along yesterday, you know that we answered question number 1, what conflicts do the Logan family face? And I chose yesterday the quote that's told by one of the Wallace brothers as he confronts Mr. Morrison in the middle of the road. Okay, so today we are going to be looking at this question: why does Cassie almost feel sorry for TJ at the revival? So we know that something big must happen, since we pretty much know that Cassie doesn't like TJ. So let's highlight any evidence that we find for that. Orange. And we said, once again, we are stopping on page 32. So let's find that. Okay, this is page 32. So we'll stop right here. Okay. Now to find where we last left off. Here we go. So last we left off, Mr. Morrison last we left off, we had Mr. Morrison that gives Papa a note, and we kind of were left with this question: why does Papa get so angry when he reads the letter Mr. Morrison gives him from Strawberry? So we have here when the chores were almost finished, Mr. Morrison arrived from Strawberry, where he had gone to make the August mortgage payment. He entered the barn slowly and handed Papa an envelope. Papa glanced up questioningly, then ripped it open. As he read the letter, his jaw set tightly, and when he finished, he smashed his fist so hard against the bench that the boys and I stopped what we were doing, aware that something was terribly wrong. "They tell you?" he asked Mr. Morrison, his voice curt, angry. Mr. Morrison nodded. "I tried to get them to wait till after cotton picking, but they told me it was due and payable immediately. Them's they words." "Harlan Granger," said Papa quietly. He reached for his cane and stood up. "You feel up to going back to Strawberry tonight?" "I can make it, but I don't know if this old mule can." "Then hitch Lady to it," he said, motioning to the mare. He turned then and went to the house. The boys and I followed, not quite sure of what was happening. Papa entered the kitchen. We stayed on the porch, peering through the screen. "David, something the matter, son?" "The bank called up the note. I'm going to Strawberry." "Called up the note?" echoed Big Ma. "Oh, Lord, not that too." Mama stared at Papa, fear in her eyes. "You going now?" "Now," he said, leaving the kitchen of the room. Mama's voice trailed him. "David, it's too late. The bank's closed by now. You can't see anyone until morning." We could not hear Papa's reply, but Mama's voice rose up sharply. "You want to be out on the road again in the middle of the night after what happened? You want us worried to death about you?" "Mary, don't you understand they're trying to take the land?" Papa said, his voice rising too so that we heard. "Don't you understand I don't want you dead?" We could hear nothing else, but a few minutes later Papa came out and told Mr. Morrison to unhitch Lady. They would go to Strawberry in the morning. Okay, so here you should be asking yourself, why are they going to Strawberry? Okay, so you could even ask it as a question on the right if you want to type it. But we know that it all has to do with them getting this note, and if you scroll down, if you haven't yet, it says, "The bank called up the note" means the bank loan must be paid off now. So it's basically the bank telling them that they need to pay all the money that they owe on the house. And Papa asked Mr. Morrison, "Did you try to get us, this is what they said?" And Mr. Morrison said, "Yes, I tried to ask for more time, but until after the cotton was done, but they said it was due, now payable immediately." So we know that's a big problem, because if they don't pay, what happens? Their land gets taken away. So that's a big deal. And that's why Papa's saying that he has to go to Strawberry now. Okay, let's keep going. The next day, Papa and Mr. Morrison were gone before I arose. When they returned in the late afternoon, Papa sat wearily down at the kitchen table with Mr. Morrison beside him. Rubbing his hand over his thick hair, he said, "I called Hammer." "What did you tell him?" Mama asked. "Just that the note's been called. He said he'd get the money." "How?" "He didn't say, and I didn't ask. Just said he'd get it." "And Mr. Higgins at the bank, David?" said Big Ma. "What'd he have to say?" "Said our credit's no good any more." "We aren't even hurting the Wallaces now," Mama said with acid anger. Harlan Granger's got no need. Baby, you know he's got a need, Papa said, pulling her to him. He's got a need to show us where we stand in the scheme of things. He's got a powerful need to do that. Besides, he still wants this place. But, son, that mortgage give us 4 more years. Papa laughed dryly. Mama, you want me to take it to court? Big Ma sighed and placed her hand on Papa's. What if Hammer can't get the money? Papa did not look at her, but at Mr. Morrison instead. Don't worry, Mama. We ain't gonna lose this land. Trust me. Okay, so now we have, if you kind of recall, at the beginning of the chapter, Papa did not want to tell Hammer because he knew that if Hammer understood they were having problems, he'd come down there and that might cause more problems for everyone. But now it got to the point where he had to fill his brother in, and Hammer says he'd get the money somehow. We don't know how yet. Okay, on the 3rd Sunday of August, the annual revival began. So we have another footnote here, the number 3. So it says, revival is a series of religious meetings designed to promote evangelistic interest. So some revivals were always very serious, yet gay and long planned for affairs which brought pots and pans from out-of-the-way shelves, mothball-packed dresses, and creased pans from hidden crests, and all the people from the community and the neighboring communities up the winding Red School Road to Great Faith Church. The revival ran for 7 days, and it was an occasion everyone looked forward to, for it was more than just church services. It was the year's only planned social event, disrupting the humdrum of everyday country life. Teenagers courted openly, adults met with relatives and friends they had not seen since the previous year's big meeting, and children almost ran free. Okay, so if you remember, number 2 is asking, why does Cassie almost feel sorry for TJ at this revival? So let's look for hints about that. As far as I was concerned, the best part of the revival was the very first day. After the first 3 services was dismissed, the mass of humanity which had squished its way into the sweltering interior of the small church poured onto the school grounds, and the women proudly set out their dinners in the back of wagons and on the long tables circling the church. Then it was a feast to remember. Brimming bowls of turnip greens and black-eyed peas with ham hocks, thick slices of last winter's sugar-cured ham, and strips of broiled ribs, crisply fried chicken, and morsels of golden squirrel and rabbit, flaky buttermilk biscuits, and crusty cornbread, fat slabs of sweet potato pie and butter, pound cakes, and so much more were all for the taking. No matter how low the pantry supplies, each family always managed to contribute something, and as the churchgoers made the rounds from table to table, hard times were forgotten, at least for the day. The boys and I had just loaded our plates for the first time and taken seats under an old walnut when Stacy put down his plate and stood up again. "What's the matter?" I asked, stuffing my mouth with cornbread. Stacy frowned into the sun. "That man walking up the road." It took a moment to look up, then picked up my drumstick. "So? He looks like Uncle Hammer," he cried and dashed away. I hesitated watching him, reluctant to leave my plate unless it really was Uncle Hammer. When Stacy reached the man and hugged him, I put the plate down and ran across the lawn to the road, Christopher John with his plate still in his hand, and Little Man ran after me. "Uncle Hammer, where's your car?" Little Man asked after we all hugged him. "Sold it," he said. "Sold it?" we cried in unison. But why?" asked Stacy. "Needed the money," Uncle Hammer said flatly. As we neared the church, Papa met us and embraced Uncle Hammer. I wasn't expecting you to come all the way down here." "You expected me to send that much money by mail?" "Could have wired it." "Don't trust that either." "How'd you get it?" "Borrowed some of it, sold a few things," he said with a shrug. Then he nodded toward Papa's leg. "How'd you do that?" Papa's eyes met Uncle Hammer's, and he smiled faintly. I was sort of hoping you wouldn't ask that." "Uh-huh." "Papa," I said, "Uncle Hammer sold a Packard." Papa's smile faded. "I didn't mean for that to happen, Hammer." Uncle Hammer put his arm around Papa. "What good's a car? It can't grow cotton. You can't build a home on it, and you can't raise 4 fine babies in it." Papa nodded understanding. "Now, you gonna tell me about that leg?" So just a moment to recognize the type of person Uncle Hammer is. You know, the fact that he's selling something so precious to him as his car in order to save his family's farm. That should tell you something about his character. And we should be asking ourselves, why doesn't Papa want to tell Uncle Hammer about the leg again? And we know that Judging from how he reacted when Cassie told him the story with the Simses, we know that Uncle Hammer might not react the best. So let's see what happens. Papa stared at the milling throng of people around the dinner tables. "Let's get you something to eat first," he said. "Then I'll tell you. Maybe it'll set better with some good food in your stomach." Because Uncle Hammer was leaving early Monday morning, the boys and I were allowed to stay up much later than usual to be with him. Long hours after we should have been in bed, we sat on the front porch, lit only by the whiteness of the full moon, and listening to the comforting sounds of Papa's and Uncle Hammer's voices mingling once again. "We'll go up to Strawberry and make the payment first thing tomorrow," said Papa. "I don't think I'd better go all the way to Vicksburg with this lake, but Mr. Morrison will take you there, see you to the train." "You don't have to do that," replied Uncle Hammer. "I can make it to Vicksburg all right. But I'd rest easier if I knew you was on that train headed due north, not off getting yourself ready to do something foolish." Uncle Hammer grunted. There ain't a thing foolish to what I'd like to do to them Wallaces, Harlan Granger either." There was nothing to say to how he felt, and no one tried. "What you plan to do for money?" Uncle Hammer asked after a while. "The cotton looks good," said Papa. "We do well on it. We'll make out all right." Uncle Hammer was quiet a moment before he observed, "Just tightening the belt some more, huh?" When Papa did not answer, Uncle Hammer said, "Maybe I'd better stay." "No," said Papa adamantly. "You do better in Chicago." "Maybe do better, but I worry a lot." He paused, pulling at his ear. "Come through Strawberry with a fellow from up in Vicksburg, things seem worse than usual up there. It gets hot like this, and folks get dissatisfied with life. They start looking round for somebody to take it out on. I don't want it to be you." "I don't think it will be," said Papa, "unless you stay." In the morning, after the men had gone, Big Ma said to Mama, "I sure wish Hammer could have stayed longer." "It's better he went," said Mama. Big Ma nodded. "I know, things like they is. It don't take but a little of nothing to set things off, and Hammer with that temper, he could do it. Still," she murmured wistfully, "I sure wish he could have stayed." On the last night of the revival, the sky took on a strange yellowish cast. The air felt close, suffocating, and no wind stirred. "What do you think, David?" Mama asked as she and Papa stood on the front porch, looking at the sky. "You think we should go?" Papa leaned against his cane. "It's going to storm all right, but it may not come till late on over in the night." They decided we would go. Most other families had come to the same decision, for the church grounds were crowded with wagons when we arrived. "Brother Logan," one of them deacons called as Papa stepped awkwardly down from the wagon. Reverend Gapson wants us to get the meeting started soon as we can so we can dismiss early and get on home before the storm hits." "All right," Papa said, directing us toward the church. But as we neared the building, we were stopped by the Laniers. As the grown-ups talked, little Willie Wiggins and Mo Turner, standing with several other boys, motioned to Stacy from the road. Stacy wandered away to speak to them, and Christopher John, the little man, and I went too. "Guess who we seen?" said little Willie as Stacy walked up. But before Stacy could venture a guess, little Willie answered his own question. "TJ and them Sims brothers." "Where?" asked Stacy. "Over there," little Willie pointed. "They parked by the classrooms. Look, here they come." All eyes followed the direction of little Willie's finger. Through the settling dusk, three figures ambled with assurance across the wide lawn, the two Simses on the outside, TJ in the middle. "How come you be bringing them here?" asked Mo Turner angrily. Stacy shrugged. "Dunno, but I guess we'll find out." "He looks different," I remarked when I could see TJ more distinctly. He was dressed in a pair of long, unpatched trousers, and, as sticky hot as it was, he wore a suit coat and a tie and a hat cocked jauntily to one side. "I suppose you do look different," murmured Mo bitterly. "I'd look different, too, if I'd been busy stealing other folks' stuff." "Well, well, well, what we got here?" exclaimed TJ loudly as he approached. "Y'all gonna want to welcome us to y'all's revival services?" "What you doing here, TJ?" Stacy asked. TJ laughed. "I got a right to come to my own church, ain't I? See all my old friends?" His eyes wandered over the group, but no one showed signs of being glad to see him. His wide grin shrank a little. Then, spying me, he patted my face with a moist hand. "Hey, Cassie girl, how you doing?" Okay, so it looks like our question's about to be answered, so we will figure this out in part 2.